All systems go. Cleared for takeoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for another Monday review show edition. Week 9 has been great so far, as we always like to say. If you haven't got the job done yet, you still got time tonight. We'll be back later on the Mayo Media Network, Hoop, Title, and myself, breaking down all things Monday Night Football for the Chargers-Jets game. But first, here with my guy Nades. As always, we're going to break down everything from yesterday. Huge day for Utica. Number one player in the world, just absolutely crushing everything right now. So we'll go through some of his stuff. Going to break down all the King of the Beach love that we had yesterday with members, myself, and many others in that tournament. Going to break down the process there of me building my lineups, the late swaps that I had readied up, and all that stuff. So we'll get to all that as we get into it. Nades, bring you in first, man. How's it going? Monday morning, we're right back to it, my friend.
Yeah, Monday morning, right back to it. Obviously, continues to be amazing times over here at the Nation. Members just posting screenshots left and right. I mean, all stakes, all players. Obviously, we got high stakes players, volume players like our boy D-Dry, who you want to talk about a heater. That guy's continuing to be on a heater there. But I mean, even single entry guys and 3 max people in the Discord turning under $100 into multiple thousands of dollars, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So been an absolutely incredible run. I had a decent day. Had a very busy weekend, but hey, that's what we do over here. Everyone isn't always able to be and listen to a bunch of shows, read a ton of content, do a ton of research. And that was me this weekend. So I leveraged obviously my research process and the tools and content and stuff that we have available to people, built my teams kind of on the go, on my mobile device, on the fly, made some money. And overall, that's what we pride ourselves in is less is more. And give you guys easy, digestible tools to build lineups and have success. And I put that to the test this weekend and had a good weekend so far.
Yeah, we put our money where our mouth is. That's why you're seeing it's not just Hoop or myself or Title or you yourself, the rest of our team members winning. You're seeing all these members win. And we'll get to that in just a second, get it out of the way early. It'll take a second, though, but we'll get to it. Before we do, want to remind you guys this show is brought to you and presented by LineStar. You can go to linestarapp.com and use the promo code SHIPIT. Or you can go to shipitnation.com/LineStar app. You do that, get over there. We're going to bring up the perfect lineup here shortly and show it off. But before we do that, Nades, I am going to bring it up. If you guys follow us on what I now call it's XFK Twitter. That's what Elon said to call it. So I was going with Elon on this one. I'm going to zoom it in a little bit. We just posted it out. You guys can go check it out. It's our pinned post over there. You guys can see it. We're pushing 4,000 followers now. So hit us up there. Follow us if you don't already. But like we said, it's been solid so far. Last week was over 400,000. This week over 300,000 already. Cole Murray's dad won the 100K in Showdown last night. Our guy D-Dry, the aforementioned heater you mentioned there, Nades, he's at it again. 140K yesterday. He got third in the Wildcat. He got second in another tournament. He almost won the $20 Millie Maker again. He was up there for quite some time. We'll talk later about the late situational stuff with Josh Jacobs going for 4 yards, getting the bonus. Then they, for whatever reason, didn't kneel it. They let him run it again. He gets sacked. He gets brought back for 3 yards, loses the bonus. The CeeDee Lamb big catch at the end to help others. RIP, our guy Marley. Sorry, but we'll have to bring that up. We'll talk more about that later. And then they take back and plop a fumble on there. Mark F., he had the huge 150K win just a few weeks ago. He's a founding family member. He won 32,000, got 8th in the Mega. KJ10, 13K. Shady, 30,000. Romeo back at it again. He's going to give away a free monthly membership on the Monday Night Football Showdown, or the Monday Night Football Showdown show later on the Mayo Media Network. He turned 3K into 14K, so over 11K profit. Kay Brereton said he listened to the takes up to lock. He used the Ramondre Noah Brown swap that I'm going to talk more about on this show. Almost shipped the tournament. He was in there, the single entry. Sean, you talked about it, Nate. Life change. Like, this is the ROI, $20 and change. He had a few more entries in there. I think he was in for like $45. Comes out with over $1,600 on the day. Just massive return on his investment. A $1,500, another $900 plus. Newlands is here in the chat. Krish crushed. Jill came down, has been having big days in our CFB streets and now in the NFL streets. And then as far as King of the Beach goes, Chad, this was the wild swing. I'll save it. I'll talk about it after, but congrats to Chad. He said, I wouldn't be going to Miami if it wasn't for SHIPIT Nation. Huge thanks to everyone here. I'll have to figure out something to do for you all. Been a lifelong dream of mine, and all you got me there. So shout out to him. My guy, Rob. See you guys at the beach. He got one, almost two through. Deepwater is Mr. Panther. He's an incredible player. All sports. He got a couple in, I believe. Maybe he fell out with one at the end as well. I got one through. Our guy, Hamwich, won the live final seat. So a lot to talk about, but we'll leave that there. We're going to get into some more stuff. But before we do, Nades, any other thoughts on the slate yesterday? Just your, as I always say, the grand scheme overview, how you saw that slate play out. In the end, we're going to be looking at a lot of Stroud lineups, broke the slate completely, but any other thoughts at all that you had that you wanted to mention before we get into it?
Yeah, I mean, overall, the slate was gross, right? A lot of low totals, and you seen a game with a 40-point total pop off for 76 points. So basically, anytime that happens, if you don't have it, and we're going to review it, if you didn't overstack that game, obviously you could have made money, but you weren't making any significant money all the way up at the top like we're going to see these winning lineups. But overall, I mean, you talk about it just on slates like this, right, where everything's gross. Everyone's looking at the same puzzle pieces, right? Trying to put them together. There was a lot of very similar things, right? The Alvin Kamara plays, right? A lot of the condensed ownership on the quarterbacks because every total was pretty weak. And then you obviously had that big total in the afternoon there with the Philly-Dallas game, which came through late. I was on that just like you were. My main lineup was the Dak stack there, right? We just saw Washington own them last week. It's been a great matchup. So I was on that, got through late, definitely had a decent day there. But overall, I think the slate played out. There was a lot of busts that happened, and a lot of people on slates like this condense on the same things. And that's what you talk about. And I know you're going to talk about that 2v2 pivot that you gave away for free on all of on our show on Sunday, the pivoted or the pivotable NFL show with you three on the Mayo Media Network, where you talked about that swap and helped you get down to the beach there, man. So overall, it was a pretty good day overall.
Yeah, excited to talk through it. Let's get to this perfect lineup. Again, if you guys don't have a LineStar membership yet, you can head over to linestarapp.com, use the promo code SHIPIT and check it out. You can go back all the other weeks and see the perfect lineups that way. There's much more than the perfect lineup. We use that for this show, of course, but as Tyler said last week when he was on and Nades went through, there's tools for all the other sports, easy to use ways to see it. Like Nades uses the matchup stuff for NHL and the goalie stuff. You can see that there. If you go into some of the other sports, they have NBA now up and running for the season. They got some of the niche, however you want to call it, sports with CFL, CSGO, all the other ones that you see here. NCAA basketball is back. CFB is on the go already. Our guy Smarty covering that in our Discord and a members only Discord channel. So it's a community run channel, not something we officially offer, but it might as well be. I mean, he's literally running it every day. We appreciate Smarty and everybody in there and all the other channels doing it as well. So a lot to see here over at LineStar, but let's get to the perfect lineup, Nades. It was the quadruple Stroud. What was it? Stroud, Brown, Dell, Schultz, and even had the run back of White. You'll see here, very little used, but look, you got the money right here to go to like Barkley and come up at 266 and still do just fine. So, I mean, either way, when this type of thing happens, it's 10-game slate. It's wild, but it still happens. But even when it happens, that's what the winning lineup, that's the optimal story is going to look like. And that's what a lot of the winners are going to look like too. So we'll have to take it to a different angle to talk about it today. But give me your first thoughts on this perfect lineup when you see it, and then how we can apply it to kind of what happened yesterday.
Yeah, obviously, anytime a game pops off for 60, 70 points, kind of like the Miami situation earlier this year, you're going to need it. And when we review Utical's lineup, I mean, he had a 3v3 basically off of this. Obviously, you're not getting to Keaton Mitchell. Nobody's getting to him. But you see Utical still dusted the field with Bijan Robinson, right? You obviously have the salary. This leaves, $4,200 on the table. So when we review that, I mean, he had the Stroud, the Dow, the Brown, the Schultz stack with the Rashad White run back. And our stack rankings that we're going to go over too.
Also,
he had Lamb. Yeah, so the only difference is he had Cleveland defense, right? Because he had the salary. I know you talked about that. I did that. I played Cleveland defense on one of my teams too, just because you had the salary, right? Everyone was spending down, right? The Noah Brown, the Dalton Schultz play, right? You had value to get up to a Cleveland defense. here at home against a guy, a terrible quarterback on the road playing against a good defense in Cleveland. I mean, everything just pointed to that. And that's, I mean, you see it, right? The 23 points. But reviewing this lineup, I mean, outside of the Keaton Mitchell play there, I mean, every one of these is a good play. And obviously that's why you see it was so close. Utica put up 250. This put up 276. So within 25 points of the optimal it made sense. So not really much to review. I'm sure we'll talk through it more once we look at Utica's build. That makes more sense on how people would get to something very similar to this, which obviously he did.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that instead, because obviously you see what happened here. And to be honest, I know this is the exact optimal, and that's what this perfect lineup is designed to do. But I know a lot of people also look at what's realistic. And like I say, you just plug in Kamara or you plug in Barkley, and you still have a phenomenal score that would have even won the $20 Millie Maker still, and just would have made a lot more sense for the slate dynamics and what people were doing. But still, good to see it. Minus the Keaton Mitchell, very obvious as to how this happened. I think the bigger question is, and like, again, some people got onto it like 7%. You know, Dell was 6%. Noah Brown, even Schultz, who people thought was getting the ownership, did not. It was 5% in the $20 Millie Maker. Lamb got some ownership, obviously in a good spot where the Washington guys had just dusted Philly. So when you got Dak coming in, doing sort of the same thing. The one thing this lineup allowed him to do, and where I like that he got a little bit different, was to go balanced at running back. You'll see he didn't have any of those other options up above, like Kamara or Barkley or anything. And obviously this is within a set of his portfolio. So we'll review some of the other lineups. I want to see some others that made it to the top. But just to talk about this, pretty obvious situational stuff here where Singletary was getting the love, right? Like by the end of the day, Singletary was up there. I'm not sure how high he got in this. Let me just filter by position quickly.
15%, 14.82.
14.8. So it wasn't like huge, but again, anytime you can leverage that, it's not just the play, but also the build. Like I said, you see in Utica's lineup, he did not have any cheap running backs. Like he had Rachaad White was his cheapest, and that actually matched the stack. That was the run back in the stack that he was running. So once you went this way, you were allowed to just plug in, or able to, I should say, Jacobs, Lamb, two of the really good plays that were at wide receiver and running back. Bijan, people wanted to play. I wanted to play him too. It did not work out again. So that's the way it goes. And then getting to the Cleveland D, I talked about my little wordplay joke. I just said that Clayton was going to get tuned up, and he sure as hell did. It was a shutout there, and it felt like it could have been a lot more. They almost had that touchdown get in there too, but I guess that took away, and I'm happy because that got Njoku the touchdown. So either way, the Cleveland D was definitely in a great spot, and we knew it, and we had the money to get there. But to me, it all stemmed down to this. It was these guys were all popping. Even our guy Ross said here, even Nico Collins, who had a great day, was wide receiver 12 or something in scoring. So it's like, again, didn't make it there on this lineup, but just to show once you get in something that makes sense, good matchup for White, no real heavy competition there. Also opposite side of Singletary, right? You're looking at a little less ownership, 5%, but opposite side of him. Getting in the 4 guys where most stop at 3, and then being able just to plug in the best plays or really good plays on paper. You got CD, you got Jacobs, and you got Cleveland D. And Cleveland D even got to over 10%. So I don't see a ton to take away from it. I see it clearly how he got there and how other people got there within their builds. We talked about this on the show when I was talking about my flip-flop. I said on FanDuel, I use Collins more than some of these other guys. I still use Brown. Our guy Hamwich used Noah Brown on FanDuel to win his live final seat over there. So, I mean, I'm glad other people put it to good use. I used it well in King of the Beach, but anything else you can see here with his build or just in general here that you want to talk about?
No, I mean, it just shows you can get away with ownership. I mean, playing a guy like CeeDee Lamb, right, in the highest total on the slate, in a very good matchup, because he knew he had lower owned pieces, right? Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, Tank Dell. Not only that, the roster construction wise of a triple stack using three pass catchers from the same team. And then running back with just the wide receiver, not an opposing pass catcher, allows you to play a guy like CeeDee Lamb when you're not playing Evans, you're not playing Godwin. So overall, great build. Not much to take away with it. And it still shows that, hey, your day's not over when a guy goes out there at 6,100 and gets you 6 points, right? And all the early tilting that you see happen in many discords across the industry. Oh my God, my night's over, right? Bijan's terrible. If you don't have this guy, slate's over. I mean, he dusted the field by almost 20 points with a 6.9 from a 6K running back. So that's just one thing to take away too, as well. There's a lot of things that can happen, and just putting yourself in position to win. So overall, great build.
I popped up our guy D-Dry's lineup, but you talked about his heater that he's on. He was up there all day, and this Lamb got him at the end. Lamb kept getting all those catches down the stretch. He said, I think it cost him almost $300,000 across the 3 tournaments that he's talking about, which is this one. He got 3rd in the Wildcat. He got 2nd in another. It might have been the $1,500. So it was like, yeah, this drop was from, I think, 2nd down here, but it was a lot more in the other spots as well, with Lamb just crushing it down the stretch. The stat correction wasn't enough, but here's his lineup with Stroud, Dell, Schultz. It had White. He had Jacobs, Amari Cooper. He went the double tight end to be able to get up to Cooper Kupp. And this may be, again, I love the move. This is what we wanted yesterday, to try and get something unique in there. But this is probably what ended up costing him, because even though Musgrave got the job done, obviously Cooper Kupp did not. And if this is, you said, I don't know, like let's say this is Lamb and this is, I don't know, it's tough. It's really hard to say right now. I guess it couldn't have been Lamb either. So it would have had to been somebody else there. But either way, that would have been like who was the other guy there? Not like Noah Brown here and AJ Brown. You should have had double Brown. That would have got the job done, I think, right? You would have had Noah Brown.
Yeah.
Or sorry, AJ Brown for $100 more, Noah Brown for $100 less. Plus he had money to work with. I'm not sure if he late swapped off that. We could ask him in the Discord. D-Dry is a member over at SHIPIT Nation. If you guys want to be a member yourself, you can go to shipitnation.com/join and check it out. We are going to check out the stack rankings in a second. I don't have, again, like I said, I think there's so much more we can focus on today. I want to break down my King of the Beach lineups. I want to talk through that process and getting ready for a tournament like that. I want to look at our stack rankings and build out a lineup. Usually are good at that, being able to sort of pick and choose our spots and talk through it that way. So let me do that. Let's pull up our stack rankings here. I got them up here now, Nades, and I'm going to just zoom them in. And I'm going to try and show as much as I can while still keeping it clean on the screen, if that works.
Yeah, that's good right there.
We got Mac Jones down to, there you go. Got it all, right? Yeah, that's everything, guys. So if you can't see that, let us know, but it should be up there now for you guys to check out. And this is going to be interesting because I'm going to try and build a lineup on the other screen here, Nate, as you talk me through this. So I'm going to pull up our projections from yesterday. I'll bring it over on the screen after. I think now you can see the actuals from yesterday. So if you just started off and you go with the Stroud, Brown, I'm just going to show someone this. Brown, and I know Schultz was up there. We talked about using Jacobs because if you look, Aiden O'Connell is just so far down the list that Jacobs would make sense. Who was the other one we said too? It wasn't Daniel Jones or him. I think it was the Falcons. So again, we'll get to somewhere like how Utica got, but let's just go with Bijan because we're not building for results. We're building for, like, again, what you could have got to because it was up here. If you were trying to leverage that spot, this would have been the way to do it. I talked about using Ramondre Stevenson. Again, if you're not using the top passing stack, there is an idea there where you're going to then say, okay, well, if it's that good on the rankings, I want to try and leverage this. How would that be? I've already got Noah Brown in the lineup, so I'll use Ramondre, who we talked about. And then defense-wise, who's someone? Let's use the Packers because obviously Brett Ripien is at the very bottom of the list. That leaves us 7.7K. If I go AJ Brown, it's 6.7K. Let's do let me just see one thing quick. What does Lamb leave us? Lamb leaves us 7.1K. Lamb Devontae Smith is 203. Okay, I'm going to pull this over. Obviously, you guys can see there why we would be talking about Lamb and Devontae Smith. I know they don't show up in here, but again, we're just trying to round it out. You also could have went with AJ Brown. So now let me pull this on the screen, Nate, so we can talk through this. So just hopefully people saw that. I brought it up on here. Let's see this one. Can you see that one okay?
Yep.
All right. So you can see here, this scored 203. It would not compete in the $20 Millie Maker, but this would show you what type of lineup you could build. I mean, 203 just absolutely smashed. For example, in the King of the Beach yesterday with 250 of the top players, everybody that qualified, and you're not trying to win it necessarily, but even still, 201 got the job done. So just to note it, like this is just to show you guys an example of things and how you would get there. If you go here and see like Stroud, then you got Jacobs, Bijan. We put in, I used Ramondre as the angle that we talked about there. This is just one example. So it put up 203. You got Stroud, Brown, Schultz, You don't have a run back in this lineup. Jacobs, Lamb, you get 3 good plays in the afternoon, 2 that are a mini correlation. Ramondre, because you're not playing Douglas or the other side, and Packers against the worst guy in our stack rankings. This is just one way that you can use our stack rankings to build out a lineup. If I take those 2 out and I go to AJ Brown, I can say, okay, I'm not playing Jonathan Taylor. So now I'll use Pittman. I'm still putting up 191. These are amazing scores. If you look at your lineups yesterday and go back and see, my best score in the King of the Beach was phenomenal. I thought like it crushed. It came 8th in the King of the Beach. It was 172. So this is just to go back and see for some people saying how you're doing it. And I know we're cherry picking the Stroud stack for this one, but realistically, like we said, and that's why we're not spending a bunch of time talking about what Utica did, because he won. By the way, Utica just absolutely crushed yesterday. Won the Millie, won the Wildcat, won the Monster on FanDuel as well for 200,000. Just an all-around huge day for him, but you expect nothing else, expect nothing less. So congrats to him. Just an incredible run. As always, excited. He'll be back down at King of the Beach, so should get to see him there and then go from here. But just to see it, Nades, like talk to me about some of the other stuff you're seeing here. A lot of these guys, I use Deshaun in my lineup. Mac Jones, not the best, but like Henry, I think got in. Douglas had a pretty decent day for his price tag. Like again, you needed Stroud, but this is just to show it. It was pretty high on that afternoon game, pretty high on Stroud, Howell, Deshaun. These are the guys that I ended up using. I trusted the stack rankings more and ended up having better results. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I trust the stack rankings a lot too. Hunter Henry, was fine. 3,600. He got in the box there. Obviously, the top ranked value, if you will, right, in terms of tight end, using the stack rankings here. The Browns, right? Amari Cooper had a big day, and we've seen Amari Cooper hit the optimal. It doesn't say that, okay, Amari Cooper's not here, but if Watson is popping, Njoku's popping, Elijah Moore, obviously Njoku and Elijah Moore are popping in this because of their value, their price tags, right, in the projection. But Amari Cooper is the number 1 wide receiver in that offense there. If the stack rank is already like that offense, why not go to a guy like Amari Cooper? So just using different things like that, right? The Packers defense, obviously people were playing the Packers defense in Lambeau at home. Temperatures getting colder, Rippy and starting on the road in Lambeau, all things. But it's also Rams passing game down, bottom of the list, way down the board. Packers cheap price tag, right? Obviously, it's not the Colts score, it's not the Browns score, but the Packers. I use the Packers and Aaron Jones correlation in my main build is something I liked there. So overall, these stack rankings continue to do their job. You can continue to pull plays, and it's not just a cookie cutter approach that, okay, the stack ranking says Daniel Jones, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton. It doesn't mean go in there and use all 3 guys, but you could have used a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, who scored 13.5 points at 3,500 at way lower ownership than a guy like Demario Douglas, right? He's already up the board. He outscored Demario Douglas for $500 cheaper at almost 10, 15, 20% ownership cheaper or less. So just pulling different plays like that, it doesn't mean you have to go in here and use it, but just building your way through it. If the passing game's down the board, right, like the Vikings, obviously you're probably not getting to Alexander Madison, but how someone could have got to Alexander Madison at his $5,400 price tag. Jaron Hall, Hawkinson, Brandon Powell, right? People were trying to make Hawkinson work way down the board, the passing game. Well, why not throw a guy in like Alexander Madison at 5,400? It's off the Singletary. It's a little bit more expensive than a Singletary chalk. It's cheaper than that mid-tier, right? The Jonathan Taylors, and it's way cheaper than the top end. So just things like that on how you can look through this and use it and pull different pieces away from here. I use this to build. Obviously, you used this a lot this week and had great success. Congratulations getting back down to the King of Bleach. And I use this for my main lineup, and my main lineup definitely did good.
Yeah, and also, too, I'll say it, like, this is another thing to show off. Like, again, I was talking to Hoop and Title after we get off the show yesterday. I was just, kind of throwing ideas out there. And in the back of my mind, I kept saying, like, I'd like to use Lamar because if he just has a big morning, I was going to swap my Watson lineup, which we'll get to in a second, to Lamar. Because I was like, if he just gets there in the morning and all these Hurts people got to catch up, that's going to be a bad scene. Like, they're going to have to get all the way there, and I'm already there. And Mark Andrews could set it different. But again, part of the process, and I think you just nailed it, is using these tools. This is by far my favorite tool. And I'll go back. We never showed this up, but I think it's just funny because people are like, oh, this is all just a marketing. Like we talk about everything you need to have success with DFS. If you just read sort of our mission statement on the front page, a winning daily fantasy sports player has a standardized process, effective tools, and consistency. Well, We've got the process. If you don't have one, you can go to the education and get the course for free. It's a 4-hour NFL DFS course breaking down how you can make your own process. Then you go to the tools, where we just showed off one of our most effective tools and how we use it. More on that in a second. You need consistency. Well, that's how you get it, is from using the same process and going after it and finding out what works and what doesn't. And if you're talking about results, we've shown off the results. It's 4 weeks in a row now of huge consistency. And it's not just Hoop, myself, Nades, Title, the rest of our team. It's the members that are going out and getting it. They're not just watching us win. They're winning for themselves. Not how much we win. It's how much we help you win. And then you read here. We spent years. Hoop and I were adding it up. Like, Hoop's been in the game over 10 years. I've been playing like pretty much, what's the word? Not professionally, because it's only the last 3.5 years that I've been playing it professionally, but very consistently and heavily for the last 7 years. More serious, I would say. But it says game theory, talking about game theory, leverage, and correlation. This is the point of what Nades just said here with this idea. It's not just plug in these guys or, oh, but this didn't have Amari Cooper. It just said that. It's finding out, like, okay, Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott look way better than Lamar Jackson. It's okay, the Packers D is popping in our projections and Ripien sucks and he's way at the bottom. Maybe that could make sense. Tune at the bottom. If you have the money, go with Cleveland. It's not all going to work out. You can cherry pick it at the same time. But I'm saying, like, you have to think through the actual idea of what you're doing here. And if you're not playing, like, if you decide you want to leverage Singletary, well, then guess what? The Stroud stack looks pretty good. If you decide Baker's down the board a little bit, more than halfway, maybe I'll use White in that stack. Okay, I'm not using the top stack. I might as well double down on that leverage and say, if I'm not going to use the passing game, let me use Ramondre. Or I'm not using the quarterback, let me just use Douglas or Henry. Either of them would have been fine. It's all how you look at it and how you apply it. It's not just, oh, I plugged in the plays. Your stack ranking said use this top stack, so I used it. That's not what we're trying to present here. It's an actionable tool that you can use to apply game theory, leverage, and correlation to make it all work. And typically, we've been able to build a lineup, as we just showed you. For this week, it was 191 to 202, just off some basic concepts of what we were talking about and how others got to the top of these leaderboards. So definitely want to say that. This week, I don't think we had major MMA winners. It's an off week for us. We've had a lot of great weeks in MMA, but this week was the canceled fight. I don't know. There was some in the chat there. There might have been one guy had a huge win, but again, it's not always going to be the case where everybody gets in on the action every week. And then Joe, our guy Kevlar, we will talk about late swap. I'm going to actually bring that up now. Anything else you want to mention, Nades, before I get to these King of the Beach lineups? Because this is where I want to spend some time today, and I think people want me to break it down. I also don't mind having it for next year, hopefully when more qualifiers come and play, that I can go back and look at how I handled this slate and how I could handle slates in the future and apply some of these same topics and ideas a bit more behind the scenes of my own personal process.
Yeah. So MMA winners, Big Barley came second in the 150 max. He was testing that out. And then our guy, Y Guy, turned $1,500 into over 12K. He shipped the 3 max. He won some Mega Million seats. He won pretty much all the contests he played. And he only had 3 lineups. So not an MMA guy there either. Y Guy in the chat. $1,500 into over 12K. You'll take that any day of the week. So we did have the winners. And then I see our guy Newens, my fellow Wisconsinite boy, continues to crush. And yeah, we continue to smash NBA. I'll be honest, I've been a little bit lower on NBA. There's just so much going on. I think, Tambo, you're in the same streets. I'm still playing NBA every day, but I am one to trust our content. Projections have been great. We continue to have winners each and every night. And we have all the same kind of tools that you're looking at here on the screen. Obviously, this is an NFL show, but we have the same kind of tools for NBA. I think hands down the best projections in the industry. We have ownership. We have a correlation tool. We have a ceiling tool. And we have the core plays, slate plans, everything, and shows each and every day. So we got you covered for all angles, every sport. NHL, I saw some people asking for NHL. NHL continues to be a printer. It's not a flashy sport. It's not huge prize pools. But, I mean, multiple people in the Discord turning 20, 30, 40 bucks into a couple $100, even a couple $1,000 every slate so far this year. And we got you covered for that as well. So there's plenty of winners. And everyone, we're going to be honest, we don't win every day. Anyone that tells you win every day is going to flat out lie to you. Obviously, some people win, some people are losing. That's just the way it is. But we got a community of like-minded individuals to circle around you, build you up. And once you surround yourself with other like-minded people, your success is going to come sooner than later.
Yeah, one thing is for certain is you can't win if you're not in the game, and you don't win every day. You don't win until you do. That's what I like to say, and it's the way it works. I didn't win heavily or great for the first 7 weeks and then won 100K plus in week 8. I was collecting seats along the way that gave me an opportunity, and now I have a 1 in 75 shot at $300,000. So where 5th pays 100 and all that at King of the Beach. So by the way, if you don't know, in case you missed it, I'm giving away 10% of my winnings. So the kitty is already, it's at $500 for the min cash right now. Going to be giving away $500 up to $30,000 to members of SHIPIT Nation and to subscribers of the Mayo Media Network in collaboration with Pat Mayo and everything he does for us over there. Just to show quickly too, Nades, like your matchup sheet for NHL, again, this is very similar. You can use this plenty. We're not going to get into its NFL show, but you can use this in a way, just like how we use the stack rankings to get your ideas and your concepts of maybe your stacks, then hop into using the projections to find out what those lineups look like, tailor them to the way you want them. And then again, you've used leverage, game theory, correlate. You've put together all the terms commonly to move towards that. I want to go back to this. I want to show this now. We're going to start off. This was my 3 King of the Beach lineups. I'll tell everyone up front, this is the plan. When I have 3 like this, I'm not putting all 3 the same. I'm not just moving a couple pieces. So the way I played it was this. I played it to have I wanted to get at least 1, if not 2. And I'll show you guys how I set that up and what my plan was. In the end, someone said your dispersion was great. 8th, 115th, and 240, like almost first, almost DFL, and right there in the middle, very close. That was the idea, that the 241 or the 8 would be up there. And then the 115 was the one that would have had a shot to go along with, it actually was to go along with the 241. And I'll show you that in a second because I'm going to work backwards. I also want to show this because this goes to Kevlar or Joe in the chat, his question there. So this was my original starting lineup of number 3. You'll see somehow Aiden O'Connell got there. This is exactly what Joe just asked in the chat about using late swap when not dealing with injury or something along those lines. So I had Dak to CD, I had Kamara, I had Pitts, and I had Jacobs. This was the lineup that I was rolling with that I liked. If you go back over here, you'll see just Kamara, you'll see Pitts, and who was the other one? Jacobs, Lamb, and Dak. Dak is Aiden O'Connell. Lamb is Devontae Adams. Jacobs is Barkley.
Yeah.
So if you go back, I actually had this pre-built in to my lineup in my like ahead of time because you only have to come top 75. And here was the take. I knew that the Kamara, Singletary, McLaurin, Douglas, everything was going to be Jacobs, the 5 guys. I talked about this in my same clip. If you go watch my clip right now on X, FK, Twitter, you can go check it at ToeTagginTambo. The 43-second clip, I said the flip of Singletary Douglas to the Noah Brown and Ramondre would be awesome depending on the lineup you had. I was fine with having this lineup because I already had a pre-built-in late swap in, and it was to swap. So once Kamara and Singletary and Douglas and all these guys, Pitts, did horrible in the morning. Like, I guess Douglas did okay, but he was 64%. Who cares? Once they did bad, I was way too far behind to run that. And even if Dak and Lamb had a good day with Jacobs, there was going to be people that had it overstacked on top of me, that if that game was going that way, other lineups would have passed me already. So my goal was to hope that that game did not pop off. The opposite game popped off, not the Carolina Indy one, which we'll get to in a second, but O'Connell, Adams. If Adams has a big day, O'Connell comes along. Barkley on the opposite side. And the other thing was this was a 4-man swap. There was a different defense in here as well. And it was built like this so that the Eagles against Dallas would also say if Dallas was to have a bad day where this could sneak me in, that would be the way. So again, this one did not work out, but hopefully that answers your questions. Unfortunately, our friend Pat Mayo did not make it. He had a Bryce Young lineup. We lost some soldiers along the way. Hate to see it. I wanted to see other guys get in. Title, I wanted to see him get in. I think he had a Bryce Young lineup as well. Our guy Marley was extremely unlucky. He was in on the Lamb catch and then out on the last-second fumble. But then also our guy Chad Candles got in, said, life-changing moment for him. Always wanted to get to a live final. He was 77th, moved to 74th. So some win, some lose. It's the way it goes. It's not meant to be sometimes, but it's just the way these types of things go. So Joe says, if you're behind, good places to look for leverage long guys in hopes of a ceiling game. Yes, and to leverage the field where I know everyone's going to have the Philly-Dallas game. I flipped to the New York Giant and Vegas game with a nice setup there, as well as the defense against that game in hopes to double leverage. Would the same concept apply if you're away ahead to swap to some more chalkier guys? Yes and no. I'll tell you why.
Depends.
Yes, definitely, because typically if you want to block, right? If you're up the top of the board, you want to block. But I had a tricky with that, which we'll get to on my other lineup. Nades, any thoughts on this? Just, kind of putting the process together in advance. A more chalky version. This was like the chalk lineup that I built. I knew it was heavy chalk, but if the chalk hit, I wanted to be a part of the train that makes the top 75. If it didn't, or it was light, I had a way built in that I could still sneak into the top 75.
Yeah, no, late swapping is definitely, late swapping can go, it can help you or it can kill you. I've had it work both ways for me this season already, but it's not the results-oriented piece. It's the process and the thought process behind it. And it's also for the contest size. Obviously, in a field like this, right, where you need to play top 75, it's a different contest than swapping in like a 20 max field where there's 100,000 people, or a single entry field where there's 5,000 people, right? There's different swaps and different things that you do. Not to say it doesn't pay off. More times than not, I'm going to trust my gut. But when you see chalk like this bust, right, like the Alvin Kamara, things like that, if you have other chalk coming up in the afternoon, there's just no way you can even squeak out a min cash if you just ride the chalk with all the other chalk busting. So it's not always that you're playing for first place. You want to play to be the most profitable you can be. And if that means late swapping to give you a chance to min cash and get your money back or almost double your money, that's always a benefit too. Everyone thinks you need a late swap to get all the way up to the top of the leaderboards. And that's just not the case. Sometimes that could be the case and that's going to be the case. But other times where I think I've found it be more beneficial is when you look like the lineup is drawn stone dead. And if you keep it the way it is going to be drawn stone dead. But if you do a swap like this, right, dropping from the Dak game to Aiden O'Connell to get you leverage off of Jacobs because you're going with Devontae Adams, you're getting leverage off of that, going with Barkley, things like that. You could have snuck into the top 75 or that min cash line and still had yourself a decent day, even with your good plays that you thought were good plays busting. So there's two ways to it. It's not always late swapping to get all the way up to the top to ship all the money. Sometimes it's just getting back into the cash and hanging on and putting your money back into play for the next slate.
Yeah, and by the way, too, it was the Giants D, chalk D that was in there as well, even against Jacobs. Originally, you can go do the math. That was the swap. I have it here on my phone. So that was noted. Nick says, mentioned it in Discord, but in cash, I swapped from the Thielen Giants to Pollard Colts. I went from 70% ownership between those two and 6.9 points. Yeah, like Thielen, we'll get to him in my last lineup, sucked, but to 3% and 35.3 points. So definitely huge to do that. Our guy Tweezy said it almost won him a King of the Beach seat a week ago doing the same thing. So again, it's fine to do, but sometimes you don't know. Listen, I've made mistakes. I once swapped off $100,000, devastating, on a swap that made sense. But the thing is, you don't always know what's behind you. It's way harder in those larger fields, or you know what's going to happen. And that's a good point to bring up as we go into this next one. So this one was always a Sam Howell lineup. Right? This is the other one that I liked. He was in my slate plan, so it was Howell. You can see the lineup. I don't need to go through that. But what I swapped, so instead of Moss, Lamb, and Barkley, I actually had Taylor, A.J. Brown. So Jonathan Taylor, A.J. Brown. So the leverage running back is Moss. The leverage receiver was actually pretty close in ownership with A.J. Brown, so it was about the same. And then Jacobs and Barkley actually ended up almost the same as well. And this is where I'm glad I didn't cost myself. This would have finished 78th place if I left it. So I wouldn't have got another seat. It cost me like $500 or something. But the point is, I actually thought I was way behind. Like when I had Howell with 20, Bijan with 6, McLaurin with 12, Douglas with 10, and Njoku with 12, and the Rams, I thought I was way behind. And I could see the PMR behind me with these Dallas Philly stacks. So I chose to swap it The other angle was if that game somehow went absolutely nuclear and caught up, because keep in mind, my 172, we'll get to it in a second, has a 14.9 from, it has like 20 more points between my final two guys. So I wasn't feeling as safe as others may think. So there also was something to be said that the Zach Moss, if my guy Taylor didn't get there, could help me sneak this one in. This one wasn't close. The other one would have been, but the reason I swapped is I thought I was way too far behind. It just goes to show with the game that Jacobs had and Brown had and Taylor had, they all kind of had the perfect trifecta. So I actually could have left this one, but it's tough to say. And because I had so many chalk pieces bust early, like Bijan, McLaurin, Douglas, Njoku, and the Packers were good at 12. But again, I wasn't quite fully set on it. I was like, I think I should still give myself a shot by going to someone like Moss who leverages completely. The difference was that sucked is that Lamb and Barkley ended up being almost the same as Jacobs and A.J. Brown. So in hindsight, not the greatest, but at least the Moss kind of protected me against if Taylor didn't do anything, I could have a scenario where one sneaks in. I still don't know about this one. I don't feel as good about this one as the other one. Your thoughts on this lineup, Nades? This was a stack rankings lineup again, using the guys, McLaurin, Howell, Douglas, Njoku up there with Watson. It originally started with Jacobs because O'Connell was down the board. It had Taylor with Minshew down, all that kind of thing. So your thoughts on this lineup before we go to the final one?
Yeah, no, it was a good build. And the people that say, well, why would you swap to a guy like Zach Moss? It's because you have a portfolio, right? You have 3 lineups and you have one lineup that you're looking pretty good to get a seat, right? And it's got Jonathan Taylor. So for whatever reason, if Jonathan Taylor isn't the guy and it's Zach Moss, right, in the same matchup, that's also getting work, if you could sneak this one in and that one falls out, you still get a seat through. So just different things like that. The Bijan play was obviously good. I mean, some of the sharpest players in the world, best players in the world were on that. I liked Bijan as well. So I get that. It's not always results oriented. Overall, it was a good build. And I mean, sometimes late swap goes your way. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you kick yourself for swapping out. And the thing about late swap is you always remember the time that you swap off the nuts, right? 100K, couple $1,000, but you never remember the times that you swapped off of a drawn stone dead lineup and got to the min cash or got to 3x your money or 5x your money, right? So more times than not, people just always remember the big one, and it definitely hurts. I've done it myself this year already, not quite to 100K, but a couple $1,000 for sure. So overall, yeah, pretty solid.
My poker buddies used to say, and this would help me get over it a little bit, was this reminder of like, oh, you always remember when you have aces that get cracked by jacks, but you forget all the time. Like there's been probably so many more times where you're just dusting people with the worst hand of it, and you got the jacks and they got the aces, and you remember the excitement of that. You forget about, you remember the losses. You don't remember the times you did it to others because you always have that sort of mental switch in your head that feels like I should win or it should be me. And it's not, you forget the other times. And then just to note too, because we talked about some of the guys sneaking in and sneaking out and all the last minute stuff, but this is a really tough tournament. I say this every year. I obviously love this format. I've got a second and a third in it. I got 6 last year. I'm going to go back and try and get to the top again and be able to give away $30,000, which I'm excited to do. I hopefully can win first and do that and get that final trophy that I want to have to add and get the trifecta of them. But just to say it, like you can get in from anywhere from $5 to $500. Everything is 5 max at most. The $110 ones were 3 max. So it's like you have to beat the best players in the format that is, it's not a 150 max. It's nothing like a 20 max or anything along those lines. The most you can ever have in is $5. It's 5 entries in some of them. And you're playing against all facets of players. And just to note, like, again, these are the best players in the world. I have the most respect for all of these guys. But just to say it, like we talked about Utica, who had an incredible day yesterday. He got 2 of his 5 through. Everybody knows McLovin, 0 for 5 through. If you go back and look, Chipotle Addict had 3, 0 for 3. Papa Gates had all 5, 0 for 5. Elusive Smoke, 0 for 5. These aren't shots at anybody. I'm just letting you guys know the list of like the best players in the world. This is a hard format. Vasa, one of the best in the world, won the Fantasy Football World Championship 2 years ago, 0 for 3. Like you can go down the list and see it if you guys haven't checked it out. It's just wild though. Like it's a really tough format. Peter Gibbons, who won I think he won the Mega Milli yesterday
He
for $1
did win
million
the
bucks.
Mega,
Like
yeah.
he gives a shit, but just to say it, and he's an awesome dude too. Met him a bunch of times. He got 1 of 5 through. It's like, it's just a tough format, man. And it really makes you think. And so having, like, you really have to be prepared for this. And that's why you see, like, I've got lineup swaps and late swaps ready to go for ideas, because I'm trying to be like, make sure I have any chance to get into this. It's special to get down to these events. So that's it for that one. Let's go to the final one, the one that finished my best finish. And this was pretty much talked about on the free show yesterday, Nades. I went through it all. This has the Ramondre Stevenson to Noah Brown. This would be what you call my quote unquote hedge lineup. You don't see nearly as much. Look at all the, 4%, 4%, 9%, 4%, 13. Like, this was way lower owned than anything else I played or others played. This was if the chalk busts, how can I still get there? I said Cleveland would tune up this Clayton guy, and you see it here. Cleveland, an onslaught, including the defense. Got all 4 of them in there. And Njoku got a touchdown. The defense smashed. Cooper had a massive day. And Watson had 18.96. So very, just an okay day from them. I felt like I could still fit Kamara. Originally, I actually wanted to have Olave in this lineup and to make something else work, but it would have changed things up for me and I wouldn't quite have had exactly what I wanted. But let's talk about this. So the Ramondre, Noah Brown, instead of Singletary, who was I already had this lineup with Kamara and Singletary. I didn't want that. I had Taylor with Bijan. I was fine getting another Taylor. But just to know, I didn't want 3 Jacobs, and I switched off my other Jacobs. So this is the conundrum. This is where I couldn't really decide what to do. And in the end, I trusted the projections. I could have had a lot better finish in this. I think it was, let me go back to the solver for a second. Who was 7K at wide receiver? Oh, there was none. It was Pittman at 6,600. And he ended up getting 14. So just to note it.
Yeah,
here's where I was left.
Yeah,
in the afternoon, I was left with Jonathan Taylor and Thielen, who I really liked. It was a secondary stack. I was higher on Jonathan Taylor on the show. I know we talked back and forth about it. I said to Hoop, I remember the words. I said, I'm a little higher on Jonathan Taylor than you, it sounds like. I had Moss in the other one, so it kind of made sense to me to go this way. But I really did like Thielen, and I'd been saying all week that people basically were making fun of the fact he was 7,500 when every other week people were saying, why isn't this guy 9K or 8K? I know those were kind of jokes as well. But the point being, I was like, man, I can just leave it this way. The 2v2, though, was block the field with Jacobs at 6,900. But honestly, I knew him and Taylor both had similar ownership, so it kind of goes against what I previously said with the Brown situation and Lamb. But then Thielen was going to be owned too, and I could have went to Pittman. So Pittman and Jacobs, just play 2 good plays and see what happens. It would have got me, I believe, almost 20 for just over 20 for Jacobs and like 14 for Pittman. But just so you know, our projections had the Thielen Taylor swap. It had them 2.5 points better. And I didn't think there was a significant ownership discount. I think blocking the field with Jacobs was the only thing I could think of. But at the same time, I knew Taylor was going to be owned as well. And I liked his spot. So I opted just to leave it and let it go. And it ended up working out. Again, it was going to be hard for me to imagine a world where the other combo gets me for 30 points or plus in the delta where it beats me. So I was fine with trusting the projection. But your thoughts on that, Nades, and your thoughts on this lineup, and then I'll go to some of the comments in the chat as well.
Yeah, thoughts on the lineup. I mean, the Browns, right there, the stack. Watson, Njoku, Elijah Moore in there, but we already talked about the Cooper when he talked off the top of the show, right? Throwing Cooper in there because you have the Noah Brown value play. So not Elijah Moore, you're plugging in Noah Brown, right? The swap you talked about, the Ramondre, Noah Brown correlation there. You have him. Noah Brown also pops right there in the stack rankings, number 1 wide receiver for the Texans stack. And looking on the board, right? Clayton Tune going to get tuned up. The 3rd worst stack on the board. Throw the defense in there, just make it an onslaught. If Watson, Cooper, Njoku are doing their thing, right? Well, maybe the defense is also holding them in check, things like that. So that makes sense. It's also the field size, right? You're playing in a much smaller field. So doing things with no run back, definitely the field size makes sense. And that's what you see in some of the, like the Mega Million winner, right? The onslaught overstack build as well, which we've seen, which is a similar kind of field. The Thielen play made sense. I was on Thielen. A lot of people were on Thielen there. Obviously didn't get there, but the way you used Thielen was with the correlation there with Jonathan Taylor, which other people were using Jacobs in a similar, right, 2v2 or correlation stack there. Overall, great build. And the Noah Brown, Ramondre take was one of the best takes of the day that I held on to yesterday from you. That mini stack, the same price as the Devin Singletary swap there that people were playing. So overall, great build, got the job done, and even goes to show you had 2 chalk bust plays and you still got there.
Yeah, it was a key component. You needed like $200, so I talked about it on the show, but like you could have went from Packers D down to, or Patriots D, which was popular, down to like the Rams. You could go Kamara down to Barkley and actually pick up in the end, pick up 3 points or whatever it was. But the point being, if you look in the King of the Beach, the combo of Singletary and Douglas alone, you could add in the Patriots D and it would go even higher. But just those two was over 100% owned combined, and they picked up 15.1 DraftKings points. You got over 53 points more for Stevenson and Brown here. Things need to go your way, but on paper, it just made so much sense. And it was literally Houston and New England for Houston and New England. You're just swapping the same game, same spots, different positions, different roles, things like that. But just anything like that you can pick up on. And shout out to our guy, Dwayne. I was going to say, man, congrats to him. He got into the King of the Beach as well. Got to meet him there last year. Incredible dude. Should get him on one of these shows. I've been telling him for a while now. We need to get him in the mix. He does some content of his own. He's a great guy. And he said the late swap debate is always worthwhile to have, as it puts your process to the test on how you want to approach a specific contest, as your priorities are going to vary based on structure. Exactly true. I'm glad you brought that up. Like, again, we're comparing it for King of the Beach. Why I came in prepared to have these ways was because you need to get a team to the top 75. That's how I had it set up, so I could at least get one through. You have no chance at trophies and money if you don't get one to the top 75. That's how I look at it. So that's why I don't play 3 of the same team. To each their own. Whoever wants to do that. I really like the way some guys played it this time around. I think multiple people played it this way, where they had 5 entries and they played 2, 2, and 1, meaning they played 2 of the same lineup, 2 of the same lineup, and 1 outlier, where it's 3 lineups in total. I thought that was a great way to play it. Whether it got people in or out, that's fine. But I like that. You still played it as a 3 max. But if one of your 2s got in, you had 2 entries at least. Like Utica was one of the guys that did that, and he ended up getting 2 through. So congrats to everybody that made it. Excited to see Dwayne and others. Lots of members will be down there. Definitely excited to meet the members I haven't met already. Some good friends and people that we're going to see down there. It's going to be a good time. If you guys have more questions on stuff like this, you can always throw it in the Discord. You know I love to talk about this stuff. Extremely passionate about it. So it's huge. It matters. This is what we're all about. If you're not a member yet, go over to SHIPITNation.com. You guys can check it out. It's easy to access. You can check out everything we have over there. Like I said, if you want to get better, you go to Shop Education. This is free to go and check out the site and just see it. This won't be what you see, but you'll see the course. You'll see what we talk about. You'll be able to break it down and see everything that's included just in this course. This is what I try and tell people. Like, if you're actually serious, if you're watching this video and you're not a member, you're serious about getting better at DFS, very clearly. This course comes free with any membership. So when you sign up and go to SHIPITNation.com and click join the Nate, there's testimonials. If you don't believe us, go ask other people. You can get in for as little as $49 a month. If you sign up for the annual, $59 or $69, but you click join now, you go down through, you get in for just 1 month and check it out. You'll have access to everything. MLB is obviously off right now, but those 5 major sports, all the content within those stack ranking tools. We talked about the showdown stuff. We've got the core report, the player pool, the slate, and the projections. Number one thing, NBA. There's going to be more tools coming for NBA. PGA is back for 2 more weeks until the small break. MMA has been back. Talked about those winners off the top, and Nade's mentioned it with the matchup sheet and all of that. The course that comes free, all of those things. It's easy to get in on the action. If you do need an optimizer, we showed off the solver earlier. We have a partnership with them. You go to get the solver, you click here, you go to the optimizer, $34.99 a month for 1 sport. So if you just want to get in for NFL or for NBA, you can pay $35 mixed with the $69. You're in good shape. You're just over $100 a month for everything you need. Build up to 300 lineups, all of that. Everything that we have comes preloaded with our player projections and ownership. If you want to get in on the 6-month action, you can get it for as little as $59 with us. You're in for less than $110 a month for all sports, optimizer, everything brought across. So not much more to say on that, guys. We're just crushing it right now. Everyone's having a good time. Hoop talks about this all the time, but just the the whole community and everybody just entirely in sync. Everybody, there's no, as people like to say, toxicity in the Discord. It's all a bunch of like-minded individuals, similar goals and mindsets, trying to help each other get better at the game. Tons of awesome players, not just one person in there for all of that. So Nick, this is what we do, man. You know it. We go through, just try and break it down for you guys to get better so that you can use this to apply and build your own process. Again, a lot of people don't go on and do this stuff that are playing at these levels or winning more money or doing all this stuff. So hopefully you can take something away from this. I love doing it. I hope you guys like us doing it, but that's going to do it for this one, Nades. Final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, final thoughts. We'll have you covered. I'll have the NHL stuff. I'm about to record the NHL show for the 4-gamer tonight. I'll have the content up. I know you, Hoop, and Tambo, or Title, are jumping on the Mayo Media Network for in about 2 hours or so for the Monday Night Football breakdown. Myself and Hamwich will be back right here on this channel as well for the NBA show. There's a 12-game NBA slate tonight. So very, very busy day over here at the Nation. We got you covered on all aspects. And if you didn't have a lineup where we would have been reviewing tonight or today on this show, you got tonight to end your week 9 in winning fashion. So good luck tonight. We'll have you covered over at SHIPIT Nation.
Yeah, we'll be back. Like you said, we'll be back 2 hours from now. Hoop, myself, Title, we'll get on. We'll break down everything for the Chargers Jets. That's going to be over on the Mayo Media Network. You can do us the favor on the way out. It's a small ask, easy to do, free to do. Hit the like button for us and subscribe to this channel. When we get to 5,000 subscribers, we are on to the Drive for 5 now. We will be giving away an annual $599 membership that you see right here. We'll be giving one of these away to a random person who's in the draw once we get there. So we'll talk more on that as we get closer, but definitely want to make sure you subscribe now so you can be a part of it when we get there. That's going to do it for this one, guys. For Nades, for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it.